Hi guys, welcome back. This is Matt Chat episode 320, featuring the third and final installment of my interview with Mr. Jim Sachs, the computer graphics artist. This part of the interview, we talk about his plans to make a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea prequel for Disney, his work on the CDTV, CD32, what he thinks about those platforms, and much, much more. A lot of great stuff to cover here, so without further ado, here is Mr. Jim Sachs. So this is something I didn't know about you until I was researching for this interview, but apparently you did the interfaces for the CDTV and the CD32?
Right, yeah.
You know, how did that come about?
Well, I had a kind of relationship with Commodore, and my friend Reichardt von Wilschild was working closely with Carl Sassenrath on developing the internal programming for the CDTV. And so my name just kind of came up to do all the graphics for it, and they just let me run with it, whatever I wanted to do. They said, okay, and Reichardt had the idea of just, it should be glass and chrome, something like that. So I said, okay. I made that and worked out really well. Wrote the little opening fanfare music and all that kind of stuff. Because I still had that soundboard from Anthony Wood. Carl Sassenrath just loved. He used that as a nightlight. He was involved. It was his baby, basically, CDTV, and he just loved all of my opening screen. You know, with the there was a piece of rock with a CD leaning on it, and then a laser beam is hitting that and forming the letter CDTV as it rotates. He used that as his nightlight for years and years.
Now, what are your thoughts on those platforms? The CDTV and the CD32.
CDTV was ahead of its time. We were a year ahead of CDI, which was our competition. And Commodore was starting to get kind of flaky as far as marketing and things like that. And it should have been bigger than it was. And then they came out with CD32, which internally was fantastic. And you know, they flew me to their headquarters, and I sat down and tried to get with all of the programmers and everything as far as a grand vision for the graphics, for the internal graphics for the thing. I really wanted to go all out on that. And because I no longer had Carl Sassenrath or Reichardt to act as a buffer between me and corporate Commodore, I couldn't do them. I just, I couldn't schmooze properly or get them to go with my ideas. It's going to be too expensive or too time-consuming or something. So I did a little bit and then left, and then they had their own internal guys massage it after that, and it looks ugly. The clarity of CDTV, even though it was a far more capable machine. So CD32 should have really swept the market if it was marketed right. The idea of, just being able to pop in a CD and play these games like Defender the Crown instantly, where the scenes just come one right after the other, and you can have live video and all kinds of things, music, musical scores. I felt like you could make movies. You could just do anything you wanted. Just never really took off, though.
Yeah, I saw one of your quotations somewhere about how you said that the engineers there were some of the finest minds in the business, but the marketing team not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's every Amiga fan's rallying point, right? That's what if it had only had decent marketing behind it?
Yeah.
I saw that I know you're a big fan of Deluxe Paint. But I saw that you had said that you're very comfortable with Deluxe Paint. It was almost, when you're working with that program, it almost feels like you're touch typing. But what was it about that program that is different, or that you can't capture that sort of experience, say with Photoshop or whatever the stuff is that's out there now?
Well, it was a painter's program, unlike anything since. Photoshop is for manipulating photos. And the fact that you can change some of the dots on the photos is just an afterthought. With Deluxe Paint, it was for painting in pixels. And Dan Silva just did a fantastic job with the interface. And it was like touch typing. I'd have my left hand on the keyboard, my right hand on the mouse, and I was just back and forth, swapping screens and just doing all kinds of stuff just instantly. It was, I can't really think of anything that I would use to do that now, especially when you combine what you can create with Deluxe Paint with what you can animate with Aegis Animator. So a company, I did a lot of, like little demos for companies, things like on-screen logos and things like that, for Mattel and just a lot of different companies. And they would come to me and say, okay, we'd kind of like it to look like this. And within an hour, I could have something on the screen that they could be looking at and say, yes, that's exactly what we want. Well, I don't know what I would use for that anymore. With Deluxe Paint and Aegis Animator, I was just so comfortable with it. That whole market just seems to have disappeared.
Do you still get work in that? Do you still get companies coming to you asking for logos and things of that sort?
Well, I get a lot of, I wrote this Serene Screen Aquarium program, a screensaver, that really took off. And I get a lot of companies wanting to use that in different aspects. Now, there's a company that wants to use it on the front of a refrigerator that has video screens on it as their default picture. And that's the only way that I still do any type of work like that. Basically, I'm building my house all day, every day. I'm putting up drywall and doing electrical, and it's all just me.
So if somebody were to come to you and with want you to do a Matt Chat logo, what would be your fee? I don't really. I made so much money with the aquarium before the recession that I wouldn't even charge. It's just I'm right now doing the graphics for an old friend of mine, Mike Crick. Mike Crick is the son of Francis Crick, who discovered DNA. Oh, cool! Wow.
And he's been a friend of mine. He organized a graphics seminar that I did about 30 years ago in Seattle. And we've been real good friends ever since. We stayed at each other's houses when we were in town and all that stuff. Mike wrote a program called WordZap and 30 years ago, and I did the graphics for that. And now he's just come back to me recently to redo the graphics for the web version that he's coming out with. And he's not charging for the game, and so he can't pay me anything. Well, he could, because he's very wealthy now. He sold a letter from his father to him for $6 million, which is the most expensive letter ever sold in history, about 2 years ago. So I said, well, if you're giving this game away, what's your business model? He said, my business model is I never have to work again. So I can't pay you. So, but I'm doing just, because we're old friends. So, generally, I'm out of business.
If only my dad had discovered DNA.
Yeah.
So what about this program, Brilliance? I don't know a lot about this program. I remember seeing the advertisements for it. I guess that was sort of the successor to Deluxe Paint.
No, it wasn't by Electronic Arts, so it wasn't the successor. It was competitor to Deluxe Paint from Digital Creations. And they commissioned me to do just the ultimate hand-drawn picture in Brilliance. So I did this, the Amiga Lagoon picture, the great big
everybody's seen that
multi-screen monster. And so they gave me an Amiga 4000 and a copy of Brilliance, and I did that picture for them, and became friends with everybody there. They were real nice people. I didn't ever get quite as comfortable in Brilliance as I did with Deluxe Paint, at the time, Brilliance could do more, and it could do AGA mode, which I used for that painting. And at the time, Deluxe Paint couldn't yet. Later, Deluxe Paint 4 or 5 came out, and it could. But for a few months in there, Brilliance was farther advanced than Deluxe Paint. And I got almost as comfortable as Deluxe Paint. They tried to keep some of the same keyboard shortcuts as Deluxe Paint had, and it was good. It was an excellent program. At the time, I was also working for NewTek, who came out with Dpaint, and I did the user interface for that. I can't recall ever actually getting paid for doing it, which kind of caused a little bit of a rift between me and NewTek for a while. But
yeah, they were making lots of money with their video toaster.
Yeah, they were, and then I hadn't talked to Tim Jennison for 25 years, and then I got together with him at the Amiga reunion. We had a great little time together. In fact, we kidnapped him to go do an interview where my daughter filmed it, and then fed him Chipotle Mexican grill food until he was willing to talk. And then we had a great interview and a great time together. Promised to keep in touch sooner than every 25 years.
Well, I guess your biggest success kind of came out of this promotional thing that you did for Brilliance, right? When you were designing that image, I think I read that's what sort of inspired you to try to make this aquarium.
Yes, yeah. That's right, yeah. My idea was to use the different sections of that painting that I did for Brilliance, the above the water and below the water. The first one was going to be the marine aquarium. Second was going to be a terrarium with lizards and tree frogs and things like that, like are in that painting. And then the third one is going to be an aviary with, I've got a couple of birds in the painting too. So that was going to be a whole series of screensavers. The first one did so unbelievably well that I got lazy, and I thought it was just going to last forever. And then the recession hit me, and it wiped me out. The market is still kind of there, but at the time, it was so different from anything else. Microsoft had an aquarium that they gave away with Windows, where it was just bitmaps of fish being dragged across the screen. And they had that for like 3 or 4 years. And I thought, okay, I've given them enough time. I'm taking them to market. I'm going to do something that will just blow that away. So that took a year to program. And but then within a few days, it was literally getting millions of downloads. This was very early internet. But it was on a site called 3dfiles.com. And it was their first download to reach 1 million downloads. And people just went crazy for it. So suddenly it was on every monitor in Costco, and every monitor in CompUSA and Circuit City. And no matter where you went throughout the world, in little villages in the Philippines or whatever, you'd stand on a street corner in the middle of the street, and all 4 windows for the stores all the way around it had the aquarium running. It was just astounding. It must be literally 1 billion copies out there. So sold that out of my bedroom. Just they download the free version and then pay me $20 for a key to unlock it. And then somehow people were willing to do that. I just made up those numbers and, well, how about $20? I have no idea if that was the right price point or what, but it really took off.
Yeah, he said so enough of these people ask you or paid for the key code to actually, make you quite a fortune there. Huh?
You figure 1 in 1,000 paid for it. That literally, especially from China and Russia, there'd be 1,000 copies for every one person that actually paid. But the numbers were so huge that was still an enormous income. And, it was like $1 million a year. It was just really incredible. And I took credit cards in those early days. And so I went to my bank, I got a credit card machine and everything. And the credit card company was not believing that this was a kind of a new model for them. They had never seen something which didn't actually exist being sold, especially with those type of numbers right off the bat, where it's just 1,000 sales a day or something, so they thought, well, we have diamond merchants that aren't doing that. What are you selling? I said, well, I'm selling an electronic key code. I'm selling imaginary fish. And so you buy this key code and you can see this picture on your computer screen. I said, well, you're not selling anything. It costs nothing to make, and you're making all this money. That can't be legal. So they withheld my money for a couple of months before they finally release it.
I guess they finally got that sorted out.
Yeah.
And then you were able to create your castles.
Yep.
All right, Jim, I just have one last sort of question here that I wanted to run by. It's actually a quotation. I really like this quotation. I just thought I'll read it back to you, and then maybe we can take it from there, because I think this is really gets at the heart of the whole Amiga community. But somebody had asked you about something happened in the Amiga news, and you said, well, I haven't really followed the news, but even in those days, it was not really about the hardware. It was about the type of people that were attracted to it, their can-do attitude. When I started consulting on PC projects after the Amiga, I was surprised that developers were not eager to try something unless some other developer had already done it. With the Amiga developers, it was almost pointless to try for an effect unless nobody had done it before. Wow, what a great quotation there. I mean, I just wonder if you could elaborate on this a little bit.
I would go to user group meetings, starting with the Commodore 64 and then the Amiga, where people were just avid. They were just frothing at the mouth for anything new and anything innovative. And after that, when I created things on the PC, after that, I would go to a couple of, I think I maybe only went to one user group meeting where it's just, okay, this spreadsheet does this, and everybody, dozes off and goes home. The whole mindset of the users was so different from the Amiga that I wasn't interested in it anymore. It was just so much fun to go to all the user group meetings, and then the graphics seminars. I went to taught at all the AMI expos all around the United States and Germany, and in Germany we went to Cologne, and we held it. The venue was this enormous, like a World's Fair type of place or something, and I thought, what are we gonna have to fill up 2 rooms there or something? There were 30,000 people waiting at the gate to get in when I got there in the morning. It was just incredible, the excitement about the computer itself. You just never saw that with any. Maybe later on the Mac, had aficionados that would really get into it and promote it and everything. But there's a great quote from Dave Haney who said, Amiga users made Mac users look like IBM users.
That's pretty good. Yeah. What do you think it was about the machine that inspired that kind of passion?
Just the fact that before that you would need something like that, a mainframe practically, to do the kind of effects that you could see on the screen with a personal computer with the Amiga. It's just unprecedented. So people saw that, and I thought that people would be making desktop movies, and everybody would just really explode with creativity. And it never really happened. I guess mainly because Commodore went out of business. But I thought a lot of other people, or a great proportion of the population, could do the things that I could do. I mean, if I just came from nowhere and could do this, there must be a lot of them out there that could. And turned out to be not so much the case. Even still, you can do things in Lightwave. You could make Star Trek in Lightwave at your desk, basically, right now. And not very many people are doing it. So I'm a little bit surprised at that. On the other hand, it keeps the field wide open for things that I want to do. So we'll see where it goes.
Well, thanks a lot, Jim. It's been a real honor chatting with you. I don't know if there's other topics that you wanted to talk about that we haven't covered here.
I've got a blog, Castle on the Cheap. It's actually Blogspot. So it's castleonthecheap.blogspot.com, and that's a enormous day-by-day account of working on the house here for the last several years. And then let's see, as far as the movie stuff, I'm still hoping to get Disney to produce my 20,000 Leagues prequel movie. They have never been, just very quickly, the story on the computer game version of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I did the demo that you can download on YouTube of 20,000 Leagues in around 1989 or 90, and turned that into Disney. And one of their executives showed that to Steven Spielberg. And at the time, they had just come out with Roger Rabbit. And Disney wanted to do a computer game version of Roger Rabbit. Spielberg would not do it because he thought that modern computers at that time couldn't do the job that he was looking for yet. It just wasn't up to snuff. So they showed him my demo, and he said, "Okay, you can do it if this guy does the game." So Disney said, "We'll let you do 20,000 Leagues if you'll do Roger Rabbit." So I said, "You've given me 30 days to do this entire game all by myself? Are you kidding? There's no way." So I turned it over to my friend Reichardt von Rothschild at Silent Software, and they did it. They did it for 30 days or so. They had a fantastic game. Eric Daniels did all the graphics. He worked on the real Roger Rabbit original. Disney never forgave me that, never let me do 20,000 Leagues. Even though I did the first 2 title screens for Roger Rabbit, but they just never happened. So, yeah, so that was kind of a heartbreaker, and I was in Great Depression for a while after that, and then actually Mike Crick came along, and he had done a bicycle training device software, and that company called CompuTrainer wanted to do a 3D version of it, and he couldn't do it, so he turned it over to me, and I did that, and it worked out really well. So that kind of saved me from the whole, 20,000 Leagues, mind games.
I guess you must be a really hardcore fan of 20,000 Leagues.
I am. Yeah, it's the first movie I ever saw in 1954. I was a kid.
Oh, it's the first movie you ever saw. Wow.
It's been my favorite ever since. So I always want to do something with that Nautilus. My whole game room in the castle here, the whole basement is based on the Nautilus from 20,000 Leagues. It's all steampunk. It's all going to be it's an underwater window out into the deep end of the pool. The whole bit. It's just right inside the Nautilus.
Well, thanks again, Jim. It's been really a real pleasure. I wish you luck with I hope this movie comes about for you.
That would be great.
Is there anything that I or the viewers could do to support you somehow in this?
Well, yeah, buy the aquarium. My wife had to come out of retirement, go back to work as a labor and delivery nurse, so she's not real happy with me at this point. So anybody that could buy the aquarium and take pressure off of that'd be good.
And that's all for this week's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I should be back next week with a new retrospective, and as always, I'm open to ideas and suggestions for games you'd like to see me cover on the show, so feel free to sound off in the comments. And as always, I want to thank you very much for your support of the show. Really means a lot to me, guys. Really, really awesome of you to be supporting the show. If for whatever reason you haven't done so yourself, well, why not head over to that convenient little Patreon link there in the show notes. It's a lot of fun, and plus you can learn about all kinds of other great YouTubers and bloggers and people covering the retro games and video game history scene. So thank you very much for your support. All right, what about that news from the Matt Cave? Not a whole lot of news for this week, just 2 items really. One is that the Becky Berger Heinemann, you remember her from several past episodes, they are now in the process of beta testing that Bard's Tale remastered game they were working on. And you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, I think is the caveat there. But I'll post a link to the tweet where she announced this. So if you want to get in on that beta testing, go for it. Also, this is not strictly gaming related, but I just thought it was really interesting. Some linguist has done a study of the YouTube voice, quote, the intellectual used car salesman voice that all the most popular YouTubers seem to have in common. It was really just fascinating stuff. I think you'll like reading about these little tricks. Are they conscious or subconscious tricks? You know, who knows? It could be worth studying myself. Maybe I should try to implement some of those techniques. Maybe, who knows, maybe that's what's been missing all along. All right, I think that will do it for the news. What about that ale of the week? Oh, man. This week I've got a very, very special brew. This is Surly's Darkness Russian Imperial Stout. Now, I've had that before, but this thing that makes this one special, it is aged in rye whiskey barrels. So it's barrel-aged version of the Surly Darkness Russian Imperial Stout, which I gave that 5 out of 5 stars, and here they are with apparently an even more exquisite blend. I love the barrel-aged flavor. So anyway, I'm sure this will be awesome. I'll be very disappointed if it's not. So let's get this open and see what it's all about. All right, so I've got some of this Surly Darkness barrel-aged here in the rather excellent drinking horn. You know, it's got such a strong aroma. You know, even from back here I can smell this, so I don't really want to stick my nose in this horn right now. You definitely smell that a very strong that rye whiskey component from the barrels, I suppose. And you can smell a little bit of kind of an alcohol fume there. Not too bad. And it's probably going to have a lot of flavor because the aroma is very intense. Let me taste it here. That will get your attention in a hurry, let me tell you. A little bit of bitterness, but also very sweet, kind of a cherry-like flavor. You taste some of that, you know, I would think it was bourbon if it didn't specify rye whiskey on that bottle there. You definitely smell the taste that there's something else going on here besides just your normal ale. I'll try it again here. I really don't want to chug this. You know, it tastes incredibly strong as soon as you swallow this. You know, it's just, the taste is almost overpowering. You get lots of that cherry sort of sweet flavor. A little bit of a, what is that? Kind of a chocolatey Rice Krispies-like finish there. It's kind of interesting that, you know, after you taste it, sort of that taste that's left in your mouth is not quite like anything I've tasted before. It's, I guess there's some kinds of candies you might have, little chocolatey candies. Yeah, I guess that's kind of what it tastes like. Maybe after you've eaten some Hershey's Kisses, let's say, get that sort of chocolatey aftertaste. That's kind of what I'm getting here, but with a little bit more of a cherry mix. Anyway, let me try it one more time here. It's a very sophisticated, very complicated taste and aroma. You know, I'm going to say this one's definitely not for everybody. It's very powerful, very pungent flavor and aroma on this one. It's also seems to be very strong and not for the faint of heart, as I suppose that label should imply. Anyway, I don't know how I feel about this one. It might actually just be a little too strong. Definitely not something you would want to quaff or chug in any large amounts. But, you know, I'm going to go a 5 out of 5 drinking horns on it anyway. You know, I really like the complexity here. There's a whole lot going on. And you can really have a good time trying to drink this and figure out what all those different flavors are. So, 5 out of 5 for the Surly Darkness Russian Imperial Stout Barrel Aged. I will add, though, that I think I would prefer the non-barrel aged one a little bit more than this one, but they're both, of course, very fine brews. Let's wrap this up with a quotation. And I was looking for quotes about castles because Jim's interested in building his own castles. And I found this quotation from an architect by the name of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. I think I've got that right. It goes something like this. simply by not owning 3 medium-sized castles in Tuscany, I have saved enough money in the last 40 years on insurance premiums alone to buy a medium-sized castle in Tuscany. See you guys next week.
Now go away or I shall taunt you a second time.